Hey Joan, it's Evan. You know the drill. I'm going to go ahead and do a React video. I've got your 4 lessons up here, and this is my first go through with them. So let's see what we got. Got your tutorial here.
As you work online, one of the more difficult things to type is your fractions. I'm going to show you how to make a fraction when you're using a Google Doc. First thing I want you to remember is that you make the size big enough that you can see the equation. Even though you may have a normal size for typing, the equation seems to end up a little bit smaller when you have fractions. So go up to your font size tab right up here, and I would increase the size. I'm going to go up to 20 so we can see it nice and easily. All right, now that you have your
All right, let me pause right there. Cool. I like the halo effect you got there, where you went in and highlighted where you're going. I don't do that very often. I really should. That helps me see where the cursor is going with that. That's cool.
font size set, you're going to go over to Insert tab across the top, click on that, go down to Equation, click on that. Now you'll have this equation bar that comes up. You'll also see that there's a blue box here. That means you're in the equation editor. You can scroll over these and look at what they all have. There you have some different math symbols. The add, subtract is on your keyboard, so you don't have to worry about that. There's greater than, less than. Right here's the one that we're looking for, the fourth one over.
Also, your narrative is really good here. You see a lot of tutorials when people talk, they just don't seem. It's a hard mix. Here's what I want to say. It's a hard kind of line to go between being, direct and getting to the point, but also being personable and being somebody you want to listen to. And too often people try to go in one way or the other and really don't do either very well. And whether this is just all natural or not, this is, and usually in a tutorial, you aren't working from a script as much. You're just kind of speaking out loud. But you are your statements are all flowing. You're not having to search for words. And what you're describing is not dry, even if the process it is kind of rudimentary. So this is really good narrative you're using here.
So you have A over B, there's your fraction, so you just click on that. Now if you want 2/3, you type your 2, push enter, that'll drop it down to the bottom, you push your 3, you push enter again. From there, you can continue with an equation. If you want a plus sign, and if you want another fraction, just go over to your fraction operations again, click on that, go to your A over B. Say we want 3/4 this time, put your 3, enter, push your 4, push your enter again, and then you can do your equal sign. And then let's say you want that just to be X, you can just put your variable. Now to get out of that equation, just push enter again, and then it will get out of that equation. Let's say on the other side you want a new equation, and you can just go to new equation. Across the tab bar here, push new equation, and now you have a new equation that you can set up. If you want a fraction, you could actually put a fraction on top of a fraction. So once you are on the top, just go to your math operation again, click on your fraction again. Now you have, let's say we want X over 2, X, enter 2, push your enter, now you're on the bottom. If you want a fraction down there, you can go back to your operation, put your fraction. I don't think I pushed it enough. Let's try it again. There we go. Push enter again. I just backspaced out of that.
All right, so that's a good thing to point out too. So that's an issue where you're doing a tutorial and you either make a mistake or it doesn't, come in the way you want. I do that too. Like I'm doing a recording and I hit the, a link or whatever, and it doesn't go to the link, or my internet takes forever. So what you did was you didn't miss a beat, and that's a really good aspect of narrative as well. You acknowledged it, so I accidentally didn't hit it there, let me try it again, and off you go. And it didn't allow me to think, okay, something's wrong here, something's not working or whatever. So again, really good that you can kind of think through that, just you're thinking off the top of your head and staying in the moment. That's really good. So a couple of things I might mention, actually probably just one thing I might mention here, maybe two. So one thing you could think about is the size at which you zoom in on the screen. I don't know if this is really advice. You might think that this is ideal, and if so, great. But if you don't, you could say, you know what I'm showing here down below, like I'm really focusing on this area of the screen and what I'm doing the video of. And so all of this on the extra side, that's kind of superfluous. It's not as necessary. So I might zoom in my screen. Now you can zoom in with like a Command plus on a Mac. You can do that, or no, you're on a Windows, so I'm not sure what the shortcut is there, if it's Control plus or whatever, but you could zoom in that way. You can also zoom in within Google Docs too, and not the text thing, but you go under Format down to Zoom and bring that in. And again, I'm not saying that's what you want to do here. You need to think through that on your own, but getting that zoom right, that's one of the steps you can do before you start hitting the record button. Typically the larger you can zoom in, the easier it's going to be. You just don't want to get to a situation where you have to like move your screen around because you zoomed in too far. So that would be the exception. The other thing I would say on a tutorial, and I don't think I'm going to advise it here, but it might be something that you add in later on. A lot of times it's kind of the cooking show example. And what I mean by that is if you've ever watched Rachel Ray or somebody like that cooking show, they always have like the finished product. Ooh, look at what we're going to make here. Yummy, yummy. And then you see all the base ingredients. And oftentimes then they'll also have like stages of it. Like, okay, we got this ready. We're going to put it in the oven. And as we do, we take it out here. This is, one we already started and whatever. That's creating, the artifacts at different stages so that you're ready to move from point to point within a tutorial. Now, again, maybe not necessary here, but if you show things that are a little bit more complex, you might have something where, okay, here is, a fully formulated, whatever, mathematical process that I do. This is what we're going to end up with at the end. So you kind of preview it. Now let's take a look at that in action. I'm not the math expert. I'm just from an instructional design perspective. That's something good to have in your repertoire. And you can have multiple tabs open, like with the final product. And okay, we're going to see how we get there. So we'll switch over to where we started, and we just have the equation where we start. But sometimes previewing where you're going to go can help students kind of keep an understanding, especially in a tutorial where it's like, here, we're just going to teach you, quote unquote, the right way to do this as it is. So good job, though, in this tutorial. I like really what you did there with your visuals, your narrative, and using techniques to draw people in. Let's go on to dividing decimals here. Okay, so this is your converted PowerPoint, and I think I've got access. So I can go in. Let me see if I hit to the right. Okay, and that says vocabulary. Let me see here. I'm just seeing. So if I click on introduction, let me try that again. If I click introduction, okay, it just goes to vocabulary. One thing you can do, and you've already done it, so you set up a table of contents to get people into different places, that's really good. And that makes a tutorial, or not a tutorial, sorry, it makes a lesson like this, a text-based lesson, something that is easy for students to go and to revisit afterwards. So like, okay, I had this concept, I went through it the first time, I've got it. Okay, now we took a test on it. Crud, I missed this problem. You say, hey, if you want to know why you're missing this, hey, try reviewing the divide a decimal by a whole number section. That's going to tell you what you missed. Or if they need to review one thing that might even be better is like this. You could set up in getting, you got your unit and you got your final over here, and you got all your lessons that lead up to it. And before they take the final test, you could have practice tests, possibly. This is up to you. But if you have a practice test, if they miss questions in there, the computer could say, hey, you missed this one. Here's where you could find out how to do this. And it could link right to that particular item within a lesson. And then self-paced, they can go back in and review it on their own. It's a way of connecting the individual skills to the individual content that you're using for teaching. And it all starts with a table of contents like this. All right, so let's get going. Vocabulary, working with terms of the division here, decimals. So when we do vocabulary in a lesson like this, I like some of the visual things you're doing, bolding words, making the terminology really good here. If the vocabulary is really, really critical, in other words, I am really going to assess people whether they know this at the end, what's going to help is if you don't just place the vocabulary once in the lesson, if you come back to it and you insert like reminders. Hey, a reminder, bar notation, that is, when we talk about bar notation, that's the bar used above the numbers for that repeating decimal. And you're obviously going to show examples of that, but that would be a way to hammer home that vocabulary term. Now these, I don't know if it's as critical. Math isn't, I mean, it's great if they know the terms, But if students could appropriately, solve answers given a problem and correctly use bar notation, and they never knew it was called bar notation, I'd probably be okay. I'd probably be okay. Now, in like government or social studies type of classes, I really need to know those terms. So that's where it'd be more important to not just place the terminology in the beginning, but really pinpoint, hey, do you remember this term? Do you remember it? We talked about before, just to, test your understanding and make it part of the self-assessment that goes through that lesson. All right, type of decimal. Okay. Let's see what happens when I click back. All right, so that goes back to the table of contents. Okay, good. So this lesson, as I go through this, I would say this is more of a review lesson, and that's good. I think of this as, okay, we already went through, maybe in tutorial form or just hearing your voice. I'll probably get to that video-based lesson here in a little bit. Okay, so someone has already gone through those lessons, they learned it. Now go through this and really just see, do you remember the key points with this? Instead of like introducing new terms, you're just really summarizing, and that's good, especially if you use it in the right spot. So this type of rule, thinking about decimal answers, this is the rule for it. This doesn't make a whole lot of sense to a student if this is the first time they're seeing it, but it makes a lot of sense to a student if it's like, oh yeah, that's the rule. I reviewed that. I remember when she showed us this in class. So. Okay, I'm not so picky on this. So this is what the format looked like here. You had your header text, which Google Slides set up for you. And then you got this bolded, and that it's not, I think it's centered, maybe not, I don't know, it might be just loosely however you put it in there, a red or in there to show the difference in there. This is following an entirely different format, so you're not using numbers, the size is different, and the arrangement is different. Some people would say, okay, that's not consistent, you want to be consistent in there. I'm not sure that's important. Another thing that is important is speed, and so if you just type it in and get it out there, I think then that'll be okay. But that's something over time. Maybe look at that and say, consistency is going to help students remember things, going to help them package information better because they visualize it, on how it looks on the page. Perfect. Okay, so this is good. One, I'll start with you made this look really good. I mean, obviously you're just creating little text boxes and putting them in there. For a math problem, there really isn't much else you can do with that. So that was a good job how you created that. And again, nice visual compared to this as they're coming in. So I like how you unfolded the slide using not the transitions, but the actions, I think they call it. I can't remember Google slide, but it's kind of like, you click the button, it goes to the next item in there. I was thinking maybe this wouldn't work. I was thinking if it might be good to put in like this arrow. Let's say I made that green, and then I made the step, I forget where one it is. Right here, the decimal goes up. Maybe I make that green, and then the 0, maybe that's also green, that arrow, and so this whole statement is green, and I can see what that aligns to. So put 1 above the 5 and subtract the 3. So I make that maybe blue if I made this text blue, whatever the case is. So you can use color to connect the individual stages here to the stage that you're doing here. Maybe that's too much work for it, but that would be a next level visual enhancement that you can do. All right, cool. All right, good. I like how you're showing the examples, and again, good mathematical teaching practice, pedagogy. I'm not adding anything there, but you're showing, okay, here's where it is when the divisor, when the number here under the term is bigger than this term, so that you have a full number here versus when you have a zero there. So you got that. You got to go here, and also another example where you don't have repeating number. Good. All right. Perfect. Okay. Excellent. Okay, good. Again, good uses of your text here. So again, from a consistency standpoint, some say don't do this. I say do. I'm really a fan of this. Bolding the words you really like. If you were talking to somebody, these would be the words you'd stress. You cannot divide by a decimal. And you highlighted by, and that's so in your mentality, yeah, these are the key words I want to make sure you and your ears are hearing. So I bold it so that your ears hear it, right? So that was good. I like how you did that. Again, it makes the text just stand out on the page because otherwise text can kind of blur together. You're doing a great job of using not too much text on a page. And that's what a PowerPoint lesson does. This is a good use of a PowerPoint lesson as opposed to other places where you kind of want to have more paragraphs and things like that. You want to have more like bulleted lists and just really short descriptions. Just kind of here's the process. Do step one, do step two, that type of thing. Remember this rule. That makes it really easy. And then again, all that unfolding that you do. So again, we're going to do that. Okay, good. You got that all spelled out there. All right, so this is again a great lesson here that you've taken and used with that. So, all right, let's move on to the soft chalk lesson. Okay, so this is something I want to look for how creative and explorative you were. Soft chalk allows you a lot of different tools, a lot of different things you've got there. No problem if there's rough edges because the first time you create something, I mean, I still have rough edges on mine. So I'm more interested in seeing people try new things than worrying so much about the rough edges. So trying new things, great. We're using the internal header. I believe this is the heading style designer, the designer style one there. And then you've got the sidebars here and a good graphic to go in here. In terms of the amount of content on a page, very accessible. I can look at that and get that right away without having to really decode a lot. I don't have to read through a whole lot of information. You're not starting with any like narrative text here, okay? And that's okay. I used to be a little bit more, no. We want to really have the narrative. We want to really help students connect with you as a teacher. I think that's important when I hear your voice. But in math and science lessons, and it's similar with the Google Slides document as well as here, it's okay if you really cut down to the point and you use the tool more to illustrate than it is to give the story of a particular lesson. And I think those are two different aspects. Illustrating a concept versus telling the story, and they use different techniques here. So I would focus on that here, that you're illustrating, in this case, x and y intercepts, and you're going to do so in a simplified. You don't need to really say, hey, you might, don't have to really come in with a story and connect with prior schema the way you normally would. All right, just clicking the next button like I was in Google Slides. Perfect. Oh, nice. Got this going here. I am on. Oh, okay, I got you. It's going to be the orange. And all right, and perfect. Give me 4 out of 5 out of that and completed. Nice little activity there. Nice visual. Complete activity. Okay, and Ooh, got some nice. Got some accessibility features in there, so they can use their keyboard to go in and do that. Good. Um, you give them a term, the coordinate plane. I don't know if that is you're building off of prior knowledge or not. If not, if that's something that is a new term for them, you can come back later and define that for them, or you could put in even a sentence here that says, just a quick description of the coordinate plane. You do have a typo here. If you want to correct that on your own, that's fine. Again, you're using the text to go in and to illustrate, which is good. Good job there. Nice using of the bold and the italics. You don't want to overuse this, but you're using good. I think the amount of use you have here, bold, italics, and color, to really illustrate the different features in here, I think is working well for you. But there is a danger in doing too much. In fact, this one might be it. So if you have this bright lime green, that visually is going to be very tough on people's eyes. I think if you could just go this shade of green, this darker green, that will help with the eyes. This purple is okay, but you don't want to go any more than this amount of text with that color because it'll become pretty harsh after that point in time. All right. Let me see. My wife just texted me, and I need to see here. Sorry. We have a track meet tonight, and she needs me to pick her up. So, all right. So good. And got an example video here.
This is the checkers game where grandson and granddad will bond.
We gotta watch a verbal.
In the following example, we're asked to find the x-intercept and the y-intercept for the line that is on our graph.
All right, so you found someone else's?
In order to do this, we must realize what x-intercept is. So the
minute 55
is the line that runs.
That's pretty good. So let me go back to that lesson right here. And in there, you could, if you wanted to, embed it in here. But this, I think the link is the better option here because it's not really like required viewing. It's more just kind of here's an example if you want to click on it. And so, hey, using a link kind of enforces that and doesn't like force them to go in and watch it. Again, I would change this color here. Now you have an image here. This image is not accessible. This text, again, someone with a screen reader would not be able to read. And that becomes really hard to go in and recreate. In math terms, that's difficult. Math teachers would ask me, well, how do you go and take something like this and make it accessible? And I don't have a good answer for that. I think over time that will come out. A lot of times people just will record a narrative of them kind of describing what it looks like, but even then that won't work as well. So those would be for students that are visually impaired. They would not be able to see this as well. All right, good. All right, and another activity. Click on each card that's correct intercepts. I'm just going to click on some. Oh, that was pretty good for just click. Oh, I only got 3.2 out of 8. That's not that good. Good. Excellent. I like the use of activity. Allow them to go in. Very quick for them to go in. It took you longer to set this up than obviously it takes the student to go in and do. But once it's set up, you're golden. You got a lot of people who can go in and do those. So, all right. Again, nice visuals here. Step 3. You got some more examples. Okay, couple things. You have the ongoing score. You can use that either to have it fit into your LMS as long as it's not Google Classroom. You can set that up for LTI so the score just goes in, sits in there. You can also, if you use Google Classroom, you can access the scores through the Score Center within SoftChalk if you'd like. Or you could just have students say, yeah, I'm not going to actually grade it. You can go in, keep the score, and then just think about how you got. and use that to assess yourself. So good job there. I really like that. Nice, simple lesson. You could extend that if you wanted to, but I like the accessibility. Really honing in on a very specific thing within soft chalk or within math to go in and explore. All right, final one.
This video is going to walk you through the floating toolbar that appears when you're in a Zoom meeting and you share your screen. The toolbar looks like this. It will show up when you scroll over the green, your screen sharing, and then it will come up. Then when you move off of it, it'll go away again. Your participants do not see it. Just you as the host or the screen sharer sees that. One thing you can do is if it's in your way, you can move it. Just grab it and then drag it, and then it will go. You can move it wherever you need to, so you can use different tools. See screens. A lot of times it seems to be in your way. Another thing you can do is hide it. So if you go to your toolbar and you go to the more, down here we have hide the floating meeting controls. So when you click on that, it will be gone. And then you can't see it anymore, can't get into your way. Now, if you do need it back, all you have to do is go to your keyboard, click the escape button, and then it will bring it back on the screen. Now let's look at the more button a little bit. You can open your chat from there. You can also go to a break room. So when you're sharing your screen, if you go to the more, you can do that. You can also record. So if you're not recording, you can turn it on. If you are recording, you can either turn it off or you can just pause it while you're sharing your screen. You can disable participant annotation, so then they can't use their annotation button. You can also show names of the annotators. So if someone drew something on your screen, you can see who did that.
All right, I'm going to pause there. So this is tutorial in nature, which is fine. It's not quite as much a lesson like I'm teaching a lesson about some sort of objective within math for that. What you did differently here is a good skill to be able to use. So instead of doing a screencast, which you did for the tutorial beforehand, you basically created a slideshow. If I've got the tool right, you're kind of just going through and showing a slideshow, and then you're recording your screen, but you're recording, the important part of your recording is the slideshow. And you got it all set up. You put in a lot of work to set up this with the screenshots and the arrows and everything in there. So that's good. If you ever have something that you need to go in and set up a lot of this stuff ahead of time, this is even more Rachel Ray than the example I gave you beforehand. This is a good job of doing that. You also have to do this with Zoom because it's hard to record live your Zoom controls because oftentimes Zoom kind of goes away when you're using it. So you have to kind of do like screenshots and then show that. So that makes sense there as well. The skills here will actually work out pretty well within, if you were to create lessons where like you were talking about the X and Y intercept and those other things that you use to create the text-based lessons, you could take those text-based lessons, use those as slideshows, and then narrate them as you're doing here. And that might work out really well when it's easier for you to just speak out loud how to do the mathematical operation than it is to type it up and actually like draw the little arrows and all the little movement that goes in there. And so I'm gonna encourage you to do that, to use your voice and narrative, just explain it and record yourself, because you're going to be able to explain yourself much quicker than it would be to set it all up and things like that. So our overall great job, all 4 of the lessons. You're doing an excellent. You got a lot of natural talent with that. You hone in on using those lessons to illustrate concepts and what you want to do more so than tell the story, and that's good. That's one of the aspects that I didn't talk about as much in the class, but you do that really well. So excellent job. If you have any questions, Joan, go ahead and get a hold of me. Be happy to help you out. Just give me a little bit of grace time because I get overwhelmed with things, but otherwise I'll look forward to visiting with you again and hope you have a great rest of the year.